Good morning, Linda. It's very nice to have you here with me.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
I'm not going to introduce you, but I will say one sentence that I read when I was doing my research that really struck me and made me want to interview you. It's from Gulf News, and it says, quote, "A German expat in Dubai gave up her promising career after she fell in love with camel riding," unquote. So this is the introduction. I was like, oh, this is so interesting. So yes, please describe yourself in the third person. Who is this German expat girl?
Who's this crazy person? Yeah, Linda didn't come here for chemists to the Middle East. She studied something very basic like hotel management with international career aspirations. Working in multicultural environments was always her goal. And over several stops in different countries, eventually she settled here in Dubai 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the with all the hustle and bustle of this very dynamic city, there was some outlet needed and to just relax. And that was the desert initially. And with the desert, obviously, it's a strong link to the camel, and that's where she would combine her horse riding hobby from back home with a bit more of a local twist, which was
Yeah.
the camel. And it was just that to be in the beginning until COVID hit and basically shook as well the industry drastically, of course, as we all know. And there was suddenly
A
more time
shift.
uh, and no job. So chemist was again a bit the anchor, and uh, from then again going back to work, chemist was sort of a continuation until I cut the cord entirely to a job to an employment, and now she's just doing this chemist school, teaching more people, sharing the beautiful side of chemists.
Yes, because not only did you, let's switch to you now, did you give up your promising career after you fell in love with camel riding? It's all well, but you helped, you co-founder of the first camel riding school, which is super cool. So, of course, I think COVID was probably the shift, like when you made a decision to probably switch a hobby into a career. But tell me the story of the school and how the crazy idea, which crazy is good to me. So how the crazy idea came by and how you, yeah.
Yes. I mean, I don't think initially I even knew what was coming or how it could, unfold in a way that where we are today. It was more, I knew it's fun and it's so enjoyable and made me feel much more connected to the UAE as a home, because it's a very transient city where people come and keep living a part of their, cultural origins, obviously. So sometimes it misses a little bit that localization for many,
Mm-hmm.
and for me. So and because I felt this is such a good way of knowing this chosen home, I thought, why is it not available to more than to the general public? And
Because, okay, so there were no schools when you wanted to learn how to camel ride yourself.
it,
I read that it was a bit of a struggle.
yes, initially I learned through a government institution who is teaching, who's doing an annual event, and for that event they are training people more about camels, which is more the heritage side of things, and that was where I got hooked initially. But then once you completed this annual event, you were sort of meant to just go on with your
What's
life.
next?
Yes. And through that, my friends knew I was writing chemist, and they said, "Can we come?" And I always had to say no, because you are not part of this program, right? So that's when I noticed there's this gap of no
Mm.
facility, no institution, and then I was searching for local for a place, first of all, to potentially just have a camera on my own, and which is I've never had to take care of an animal of that size. I had, so comes with a lot of responsibility.
Definitely, you cannot keep it at home.
No, and I've never looked after animals apart from some bunnies back home. So I wasn't ready also to take this on my own. So I knew it's better to partner up with someone, and I was searching for an Emirati primarily. They are the ones who have the camels in the space, to say, look, I have camels, you can do your program, I look after the husbandry basically. And that didn't really work out. So I already wrote off this idea, and it was every sort of conversation that led to nowhere was a confirmation of, and that's why we don't have camel riding schools.
It's complicated to set up.
Yes, and maybe also the camels don't work as a horse, in the same scenario system and so on. But then through some lucky circumstances, I met my current business partner, and he just saw the vision, actually, maybe more than I did, because I just kind of sort of laid out the pieces, and then he immediately said, it's like a horse stable, but for camels.
Yes.
So it was basically just, me rambling and him sort of grasping exactly what the essence of it is. And that's then, and we just started there. And it was from getting to know his camels that he had. We started with 3.
Right.
Fixing up the place, upgrading a little bit of the gear so it looks all a little bit more neat, because in general, the camels here, which are meant for riding, they're not the precious ones. The riding camels are training the race camels, which are not students. So these camels were not necessarily so much in
good shape.
Yeah, neglected is a strong word, but they were not as much cared for as the precious race performance camel. So we shifted a little bit that perspective as well along the way. And yeah, then it just some newspaper, I think it was Emirates Women, put up a post and on their social media, and until today I don't know how they picked it up, but that initial post gave us a huge boost. And then it just kind of, it was word of mouth, but also a small publication here and there that kind of spread the word. And then we just kept having new people walk in the door and saying, finally. So, and that's when I realized I'm not alone also.
Wow. Yeah, there are other people who were looking for that. So it started in January 2021.
Yes, that's when we started.
We started with 3 camels, and now how many do you have?
Now we have 13.
Wow.
And we are actually searching for some more.
Okay, so if anybody knows any camels around there,
I'm taking resumes.
What's the ideal size you would like to get in terms of camel number?
It's a good question. So in the winter, I think 15 would be great. That gives us the chance to take more riders in one class, because we've been in winter, it happens that we're fully booked, but also it's more opportunity to schedule more rest as well for the animals. So just a rotation and so on. So because even if you have 13, maybe there's only 10 that you can
available
moment in time you're taking out, because there's some breaks here and there for them necessary as well. So,
do camels get injured a lot like horses? What kind of vet services do you need?
Yeah, so there's a lot to say about camels, and I could fill probably an entire podcast.
We'll do a whole series. This is just episode 1.
Yeah. But so what we need to know about camels is that their entire physical but also psychological adaptation is to deal with scarcity. So
yes,
and with extreme conditions, like in this case in the Arabian Peninsula, it's heat, lack of abundance of nutrition and water and so on. So their whole body has so many features that help with that, which is really fascinating. And the display of this is just like, it blows your mind. For example, finished, we're still at the end of summer, the camel would be laying down and happily rolling in the sand, which is in the middle of the day, 1 p.m. The sand is probably
roasting.
I wouldn't be, it's like 50 to 60 degrees. You as a human, even if you wear a thin slipper, you will be, that's not possible. I need decent footwear to not get, heat blisters. And a camel is just like indulging in this little sand bath. So it's just, how do they do it? It's fantastic. So but also that physical or that adaptation to scarcity also reflects a lot in their emotional or psychological characteristics. So for example, they're very aware of what's going on around them, but they don't react to everything. So
they save their energy in a way.
Yes, like,
they pick their battles.
Yes. And they will just, pick what's needed, and they remember very well places of food, or sort of routines and so on. So they're very clever. And that's what I've been learning through this with them. And then now when it comes to injuries, I would say, or caretaking in general, they're less needy. For example, the quality of feed is not as they're not as sensitive to any change in feed versus a horse easily gets it. And then we have the what did I want to say? Yeah, so that comes to the feed, but also to injury. So they might have something that bothers them, but it's not really worth caring about.
It's not that serious, so they keep on dealing with it until it becomes.
Yes, and that can be almost a bad thing, because they might not show signs of injury or discomfort, or if there's anything internal, because they just simply don't display. They can pain. Completely isolate. It doesn't mean they don't feel, but they seem less bothered by it.
Yeah, they have a higher threshold of pain.
Yes, exactly. That might be a good way to say. So we still have to, of course, look after them, and that's what we do. And I'm happy that we can say we've received sort of you can almost call them rescue camels. They weren't in the greatest shape when we started to after them, and now they've over the with a very steady and wholesome feed and so on, they look really good and feel great. So
in terms of feed, what do they need to eat and drink? From childhood memories, from when you read in books, I seem to remember that they drink like liters, and then they can just hold off. Is it the same with food? Do they binge, or do you feed them 2-3 times a day? How does it work?
Yes. So these are some of the key facts that people remember are aware of, is obviously the water consumption, and they really, on the water, they binge. Like it's just one. Now in summer, actually, we do give them water twice. In winter, it's just once a day, and then they can drink up to 25% of their body weight. That's not necessarily the situation now, as they are in a routine and they know there's water, but they can absorb this water without having an osmosis process that goes wrong, which is what happens to other mammals or humans. And then just gets stored in cells, and through the breakdown of those cells, they retrieve that liquid form of water. Feed as well, we feed them twice a day, because they are now, exercising quite a bit. So we have to supplement the regular hay and straw fibery food with some pellets and a muesli in the evening. But to be honest, by now I do think it was good to regain their strength after they were coming to us, not some a bit skinny. But now that they have a really good base level of health and so on, I feel like I almost need to reduce the feed, because then can end up storing too much. Like European camels, for example, they basically suffer from obesity because of the oversupply of rich food. And since our camels are working and walking and running fast, they shouldn't be so heavy because it's bad for their joints.
Yeah. If you wanted to give them a treat, what would it be? For horses, it's carrots, and for camels, what do they like?
Yeah, they love sweet things. So dates, for example. Dates is good, and also sort of like a hot dog bun. It has a really good shape for them to eat.
So bread.
Yes, and because sort of you know, hot dog or burger bread, it almost has a bit of a sweet taste because it's just so, and then it's easy for them to eat with their big long mouth. So yeah, they love this kind of bread.
Okay. Question regarding gender of camels. I read that your camels are all male and that the females are used for breeding and reproduction. Have you ever tried to ride a female camel, or it's just not feasible, or it shouldn't be done?
No, it's definitely feasible. Actually, in Oman, there are certain camel-related traditions and type of racing that's only done with females. And they're still also capable to carry a human, obviously, and they are strong. I think I've ridden in the early beginning. I was riding on a female camel. So they could do the same thing, but it's just also a matter of is it availability, or just like the male camel that comes off the racing and is basically retired, not necessarily from age, but from could be underperformance, and they then have more or less no other use, if you want.
So no that's other calling in life.
Yeah. So these are the ones that are just, they are more often sold and or given away, or so that's why we ended up with more male camels. And yeah, you're right, the female ones, they could still breed with, and then drinking the milk is still also very common here in the UAE. So so that's mainly. And then again, within a herd of working animals in this way, or in a setup like that, you don't really want to mix, because it could just create a bit more tension and which is we try to avoid in a way. Yes.
Okay. So the camels you have are the ones that have just one hump?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
And why is that? Is it because two hump camels are not available, or it's harder to ride them?
Yeah, so this, we can look at the it's a demographic question. So the Arabian camel is actually a dromedary, which would be, like I said, the one hump camel, and that's native to the desert regions of the Gulf, but also North Africa, and so on. Then you have the two humped camel, which is also called the Bactrian camel, and that is originates in Asia, so more in the Mongolian deserts, northern India. Yeah, I think this is mainly where they, and also parts of Russia and China. So they are more common or local to these areas where the temperature can be very hot and very cold at the same time.
I see. So they have more reserves of food and water.
Yeah, and they get very fluffy.
Okay.
They grow a really heavy coat. So yeah, they imported Bactrian camels, and there's some crossbreeds, but generally is because again the UAE now has a lot of camels. They've, when we look at it historically, initially they were a mode of transport first and foremost, and carrying loads, then the source of milk, and once in a while maybe also meat, right? And then the fur would be used for other things. Now all these functions are more or less replaced by motorized vehicles, by other options for food and milk and so on. So now the camels that you still find in the UAE are either just like passion, right? Because they see we've always had camels, we will keep on having a farm with a few camels around. But the main usage now is sports, which is the camel racing. So the breed of the Arabian camel became more slender and long-legged and a little shorter and much narrow in frame. So
okay.
because they've sort of adapted, or they kept on breeding with faster camels. So you can see this development, and that's why they have just this dromedary. They don't really need a Bactrian camel for load bearing and so on.
Okay. I hope people are not getting bored of all the camel discussion, but they should know that we're going to talk about camels. In an interview, you said, camels are a reflection of your inner personality. They are emotionally intelligent animals who respond to your stress emotions. They absorb it all and in return give you peace, love, and harmony. Yes. It's beautiful. Tell me how you felt this and how it manifests.
It's I feel when you work or you are engaged with animals you start focusing on them. So that takes away a lot of this, what works in your head all the time. Exactly. Or like, I have to still do this. I didn't yet complete that. I forgot this. Now I remember. So we are, there's a lot that goes on between our ears that involves us first and foremost, most of the time of our day. But when you sit on the camel, you just look at his ears. I mean, you cannot see his face, right? So you just wonder what's in his head, and is he okay? Is the foot, is he walking fine? And that's really relaxing, I think. Plus, I would come here rushing after work, quickly trying to drive, as fast as possible after work because the sun is going to set. So you come with this very rushed, you arrive, and then you look at the camel, and all he does is like a small, slow gaze, and it just slows you down instantly, I think. So this is how they take everything that you feel so loaded with, and they just absorb it, and they don't but they can sense also if you're confident, if you're shy, and I've seen this in other people riding my camels because I know which camel is good at what. So you might have a fast walking camel, and then there's a rider on top, and he says, "Oh, this camel, he's not moving." So I know that it's rather attention of the rider, maybe a lack of confidence to actually be the leader of the group. And the camel reflects this. He's like, well, if you're not so sure, I'm going to stay behind, and I'll follow the another camel rather than. So the camels can express or mirror sometimes the true like self-confidence of the human. And it's like they almost give a lot away of what's going on with this person.
It's it's like the hidden truth is coming out through the camel.
Because you can't hide it from the camel, like you can say with a very loud voice like hi, which means like go, or you can even tap him with a whip or something, but if it doesn't come from your soul, he's not going to.
Wow, it's crazy.
So this is how I feel they're very close to reading this energy level of a person engaging with them.
Do you have any other surprising facts about camels or endearing? I saw that they can swim, and anything else?
Yeah, they swim. And something I never knew is that they don't have teeth on the top row.
Yeah, I saw when they chew, I'm like, oh, it's only here on the below, not up.
And a few things I mentioned earlier, just the adaptation to the environment, I think is really powerful when you see it in reality.
Do they ever get angry?
Yes. Yeah. For example, when you're like miscommunication from riders. Sometimes you can see they can get very frustrated. And then the nice thing is they just sit down. I mean, I don't know if it's a nice thing, but at least they don't.
So they don't growl, or how do they show they're frustrated?
Yeah, they'll get very vocal, so they growl or complain. But often, instead of going into with flight mode or very, very active and proactive, a camel is just like, no,
I give up.
Like, sort yourself out and then
and come back to me.
Yeah, so again, sometimes interpreted as stubbornness, but I also think we have to dig a little bit deeper instead of just attributing this as a stubborn camel, and say, but what's missing, or why, or where's like a miscommunication. And if they don't, they freeze. Or a response, for example, of fear is often rather freeze than flight. So
yeah. So they will, if they're frustrated, they will not just eject you as a horse would do sometimes, or does it happen?
No, I think to buck someone off is not very common. Never out of frustration. It's more again like discomfort. There's something wrong. Like a young camel is not comfortable with the weight, so he would buck. And then it's dangerous when a camel learns they can buck someone off. They'll do it as a game. So
okay.
So that
should not be taught.
Yes, you should never teach your camel that they can buck people off, because it's unfortunately it's a side effect of being clever. They will they'll remember this and they're like,
learn fast.
Okay.
Okay, I like to move away from camels and back to you, Linda, as a person. I read about you just coming back from a race in Saudi Arabia with the female camel racing team. It was the Crown Prince Festival at Taif, and two of your riders were on the podium, first and third. Tell me how it went, and also how you built this team, because as we know, it takes time.
Sure. This is truly a milestone for us that we traveled to a race. For first and foremost, that there was a race. I think it's a milestone in itself for the female camel racing sport. And then to be represented with a team of 8 was, of course, a big highlight. And then having people on the podium on top of that is more than I could have wished
a big
for.
Reward.
Yes, and I mean, we've started the race program pretty soon after we opened the school, when we had some very adventurous women who said, yes, but the camels, I see them run in races, you should try and run with them. And so it was fueled by the women, actually, who said what I have to do. And then it was up to us as a facility to enable this to happen. And so we start the first racing of series we kicked off in October 2021, just the 10 months after
opening the school,
which was a short distance, or shorter than Saudi Arabia, only 1,200 meters. And that was just fun. And we loved that, since we were the first all-women team, we could make sure that it goes, or that we can also set the rules and the focus. And that was always, first and foremost, enjoy, and make sure that the camels also enjoy. So the distance 1,200 is not too long for them. They usually run a lot longer, and they're very capable. And if one says no, that's it for today, then we're okay. There's no point of
not too much pressure.
Yes. And that really that gave us a lot of motivation, and new people joined. And then there was this big race in Al Ula earlier this year in March, which had an open call for no gender specific registration.
Okay, so it was mixed.
yes, the first race that we went as a school was in Al Ula, was in Saudi Arabia, 4 kilometers. And mainly I went to just to show up. I'm like, I knew I'm not going to,
for visibility.
yes, and to connect with the people who host the races. And I still have the a small post-it where I wrote down with the organizer of the Al Ula race. September was Al Taif.
Yeah.
Tabuk. So I had, for each month, I had one race location of Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And that's just like, you know how they sometimes say on the back of a napkin, you write the whole business plan or something.
Yeah.
So this was like, the post-it was was like my vision board.
The schedule.
Yes. And I kept in touch with this person from the International Camel Racing Federation. And I said, now Al Taif is coming. And he said, yes, we can host a race, but you have to help me ensure that there will be enough women, because we cannot put out a race and then there will be 3 participants. It's going to be very bad. Or not, it won't be good, you know?
So bad press.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll bring 8 ladies. And so I went all out to the team, and I said, okay, girls, we've already did, some of them already did 2,000 meters. So they were immediately locked in. They just like, yes, I'll arrange with work and so on, because it's in the middle of the week. So it was logistically a bit tricky. But with the nomination of our team, they said the Crown Prince gave the approval to open this women race. And then it was definite. Then the next step was they were supporting us to ship our camels there, but it's 1,500 kilometers.
Wow.
Really. So he said it's not really.
So you used camels from there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I just didn't want to put mine on a trailer.
Yeah.
But to find the right connection and to find people who support women in racing, it was just,
it's
again,
great.
of a challenge. But yeah, I felt there was good momentum. People wanted to get involved, and we were received like VIPs in Saudi Arabia.
Where were the other teams from? Obviously from Saudi, but any other locations?
Yeah, so there was a few more riders also from Dubai. Rode in different places, and 2 flew in from Germany.
Wow.
A camel farm in Germany. So they've came to Germany, to Dubai first to refresh or to adapt to the Middle East Dubai setup, or UAE. And one lady, again, she's back and forth between the Europe and Dubai, and so she just trained, stepped up her training for and yes, Qatar, one lady also from Qatar.
Of course.
And I think it's significant on many levels. Is number one, having a category which was non-existent before, and funnily enough, a lot of things that are a bit more I don't know, I don't want to use revolutionary, but who are the things that are not that stray from the ordinary.
Yeah, not traditional.
Yes, are easier for someone who doesn't have such a heavy cultural traditional load, right?
Yeah.
So I'm using this as much as I can not to my advantage, but to the advantage of the idea. So
yeah, women who want to ride.
Yes, because it's the if there is criticism, it will be probably stronger to a local woman than it would be to a European woman.
To an expat, yeah.
Because there's no family ties, there's no association, or that might not be received well, or sort of an image to maintain. Publicity, some women are a bit more private. So if you go to a public race, there's been so many cameras, which
Yeah, they're not very comfortable with it. There's
so,
societal pressure still.
Yes, so it means a lot. Maybe they'd love to practice their hobby and so on, but then having to be on TV is another thing. Maybe that's not for me. So but I do hope that since we had participants from the Gulf, from Qatar, from Saudi, from UAE, that it inspires them also. And I think some take it even a bit as a challenge. They say, how come this European or the American woman is beating us in camera writing? Like, no, we have to, this is our discipline. And so I think it does start becoming a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
In that, and I'm up for it. I think it's fine. Like I don't want to think that nationality or culture and so on should be a major player, but I mean, I didn't do this to show off, like, look, we can do it or you cannot. It's more, look, we can all do it. So we can do it together. And women initially, it was very difficult to just be present in a space that's entirely male dominated.
Yeah, and traditionally.
Because that's, yeah, traditionally women gather with women and men gather with men, and that's in the majlis, like in the gathering rooms, that's at weddings and so on. It's only the immediate family that really mixes. And at the race in Saudi Arabia, there was us 13 women, and I don't know how many hundreds of men. But I felt there was so much support from men to make this happen. So of course it's the female athletes, but we all carried by lots of male support. So I don't want to hide that fact, right? And it's even with my school. I have an Emirati male partner, and he helps to make these things work. And then women come to connect with women, and it becomes more easy for once there's the first few, and you become an anchor for more to join.
It's great you're answering the question that I haven't asked yet. So I wanted to ask about the challenges you faced as a woman and as a European woman, because it's very tricky. There's a fine line between cultural appropriation and being interested in the culture and opening new ways for people. So I like the way that you went about it, just out of passion, not trying to prove anything. And actually some people will always criticize you. This applies to anything in life, but you actually inspired other women and even some kind of competition. So it works out in the end.
Yes, no, it's very true that I think on a personal level, cultural appropriation, especially in today's day and age, is intimidating sometimes, because it starts with dress code. If I wear an abaya out of comfort, and because I feel like it's in this space, it could also be more appropriate. Someone could say, "Oh, you're trying to copy us," or but I try and differentiate from where do I take validation or feedback and criticism, so if the intention is true and good, I think then it's well understood by the people who have direct contact, and those who sort of reflect something negatively, or and that's women and men. Sometimes I would say then it's just a projection also of them, rather than
their own fears and insecurities. And
it's I think one challenge in this school was to create a bit of a niche or a direction that is rather athleticism and sports or hobby centered, rather than I'm teaching Emirati or Bedouin culture, because that would be very imposing. I cannot assume that I'm
that you know better than them.
Yeah, Yes, and not at least from a heritage and cultural aspect of things. That starts with language, with demeanor, with this. It's very rich when it comes to Bedouin culture, and I've read about it, and still I would only know the tip of an entire iceberg. And so, but camels are part of Bedouin culture, but they can also be a hobby and a companion for someone from Germany, I think.
Yeah.
So I do my best to brand it rather this way to avoid imposing sort of an idea that I'm trying to be
educate.
Or yes, on cultural elements.
Yeah.
And I've now coming back to the race in Saudi Arabia is really pushing for democratizing the sport as well, and getting more people involved, and making it literally a sport. And sport naturally has competitors from different backgrounds, and then it's about a good camel and a good rider. Yeah, if these are people from the Gulf, we will see in the race, right? I think they should participate, and I'm really, really happy that they did, that they took up this invitation. And yeah, I'm really curious to see what's next for racing.
Exactly. What are your plans for the future?
Yeah, it's
or the near future. You don't have to give me your whole strategy.
Yeah. No, but yeah, strategy is a good word. I'd love, or I'm working now or towards that is to become a little bit more maybe strategic in terms of the experience I have over this 3 years. How can that be replicated somewhere else, or how can we broaden it, and also how can we I could or I have already, and probably in the future also consult a little bit on camel related topics, where there's a bit of a lack of understanding from an audience that is not connected to the camel, or the ability, or the context. So I see a lot hotels, for example, having camels, or tourist attractions, where I feel like the camel is wildly misunderstood still. So I hope I could be a little bit of an advocate in how,
like well-being,
but yeah, that the reputation of the camel changes a little bit over. And I truly believe that they will play a much bigger role in the future, just because of the changing climate as well.
Absolutely. It's a very sustainable animal.
Yes. So we should be able to understand the camel better. And yeah, it's in that way, I feel like my experiences and the being a little bit on both sides helps to be that middleman in a way.
Yeah, middle woman.
Yes.
Linda, I'm very frustrated. We're getting to the end of this interview.
Yes.
But there is a question I really like. I like, of course, to share insights and knowledge between people. And I would like to know if there are resources you like to recommend based on either your experience or your own life. It could be book, podcast, movie, an inspiring quote, something that listeners can, benefit from.
Well, maybe this is a really maybe that has been recommended before, but I've just recently reread The Alchemist.
From Paulo Coelho.
Yes, exactly. And before you read it, you think about your dreams, and maybe, I would love to travel here or there. But I've read it this time with a perspective of small business as well, which was quite interesting. There's a lot of learnings that I felt it was a good reflection of how to deal with adversity, but also creativity in new ideas, and how your inner passion can help get you further, also in a business setup.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've been, I mean, maybe this is more regional, but there's a podcast called The Metal Set, which shines some light on untold sports or women in sports as well.
Okay, I'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, because we've seen it. It's very obvious. The numbers tell, right? For example, how a male football World Cup gets that much coverage, sponsorship, exposure versus a women's World Cup, and this one was a big one, which just happened. But so this is often the women athletes have to still pursue an actual job and compete in their sports versus
combine,
male.
yeah.
So I like that there is a few outlets now that just give a bit of platform to women and
a voice and some visibility, yeah.
And they're interesting stories.
Okay. And for people who want to find out more about you, the school, and if they want to take classes, how do they go about it?
So we are obviously based in Dubai, so they would have to travel here or be around. We did have some people doing like a bit of a vacation / in-depth camel course, and we're happy to do these also more customized offerings.
Yeah, like if people come for a week in Dubai, can they take a 2-day training session or a course? Or
100%.
Okay.
And for that, it's obviously best to probably send an email or reach out through our. Yes. And yeah, we do also do some camel travels, which is of course a bit more slow paced locally, but also in Oman and one in Jordan. We keep on setting up new journeys, and I think they're very worth looking into.
Okay, I'll put your Instagram and website on the notes as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda, for everything you've shared with me. I hope your day continues to be well. You'll probably have a few classes on your schedule.
Afternoon, yes. No, but I hope it was not too agricultural. I mean, it's a lot of camel talk.
No, it was great. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, and you're welcome to join us on
Thank you
as well. Thank you.